Big class. So let's discuss today SPP document 202 for standards of professional practice. So if we follow the syllabus, we're going to discuss this SPP for 2 weeks. Okay. So for this week, let's talk a bit about the applicability of this document. So let's read 1.1.1. So while these implementing rules and regulations specifically refer to the individual professional practice of the architect as a natural person, the same may also apply to the architect's group practice as part of a juridical entity. So the keyword here is for 1.1.1 is that it's not only about the individual practice, but if you have a firm or you have registered a firm, so then that firm as a juridical entity, these regulations, SPP document 202, would still be applicable. So let's look its provision for foreign architects. So offering services under this service, foreign architects offering services under service are subject to full compliances with Section 38 of Republic Act 9266, that's implementing regulations, including resolution of the board, which calls for a local counterpart architect for any foreign architect, and other periodic issuances of the board and commission. So, okay, the gist of 1.1.2 is that if there are foreign architects that have a project here in the Philippines, they should have a local counterpart. So therefore, a foreign architect practicing architecture in the Philippines for projects in Philippine soil must first secure a temporary special permit, so that's the first, and a work permit from DOLE or Department of Labor and Employment, and must work with collaboration with the local counterpart which is licensed under RA 9266. So remember these three things, class, if it's a foreign architect. One, they should secure a special permit. Second, a work permit from DOLE. Then the third, they should have collaborated the local counterpart, which is a registered and licensed architect in the Philippines. So business process outsourcing and knowledge process outsourcing firms which have been DTI or SEC registered in the Philippines to provide services for overseas clients are not authorized to provide architectural services for projects located on Philippine soil. So unless they are PRC registered architectural firms satisfying Section 37 of RE 9266 and its implementing rules and regulations and its derivative regulations, including resolutions of the board and the issuances of the board and commission. So 1.1.3, the gist of this, it just means that BPO companies and KPO firms which are registered under DTI and SEC that provide services for foreign clients, they're not authorized to provide architectural services in Philippine soil unless they are PRC registered architectural firms and they satisfy RA 9266. Okay. Then 1.1.4, the architect's outputs listed under this SPP may be expanded or increased depending on the requirements of the project or the architect's experience, capabilities, and specializations. So I think the gist of 1.1.4, it just means that what you read here, they're just the minimum. You could also expand what is listed here under this SPP because it would really depend on your experience or your specializations. Then the regular design service of the architect. So in the regular practice, the architect acts as the owner or client's advisor and or representative. He translates the owner's needs and requirements to spaces and forms in the best manner of professional service. Second, the architect works starts at the inception of the project when the owner outlines his requirements for the project. So the moment class, the owner already talks to you about the requirements for the project, then your work has already begun. So it's important to take note of this because I think during this period you should already have a contract with your client and you should already be paid for that service. So the work covers the various aspects of the project from analysis and study of the needs and requirements, the preparation of the necessary instruments of service, and finally to the supervision during public implementation. It ends only when the general contractor or builder turns over the completed project to the owner. So it's important also to take note of this one that your service, the regular design service ends when the project is already turned over to the owner, meaning it's already complete. So let's look at the scope of services. So if you look at the scope of services here, you have here first one, the project definition phase, the schematic design phase, the design development phase, and the contract documents phase. And you also have the bidding and negotiations phase, and the last is the construction phase. So let's talk first about the project definition phase. So let me read this. So this phrase involves the definition of the requirements of the project by the owner. The architect in turn informs the owner of the technical requirements of the project and the concomitant professional fees. So it's really important, guys, that um, during this period, the project definition phase, that you already inform the client of the possible professional fee for the project that's being undertaken so that they will not be surprised later on. So the problem with most young architects is that they become shy when they're talking already about the professional fee. But that's not something that should be shy of. It's something that should be clear even at the project definition phase or at the start of the project. So the project definition phase, the architect consults with the owner to ascertain the conceptual framework and related requirements of the project and confirms the requirements with him. He gathers relevant information and data leading to the definition of the requirements of the project, including the scope of the architect's service. The architect reviews and refines the owner's space requirements and translates them into an architectural program. Then the architect prepares an initial statement of probable construction cost. So the probable construction cost, that's the cost per square meter. So if you already have an idea of how big the project the client wants to build, so you could just set a multiplier for that based on prevailing estimated market prices. So I think right now, I think the lowest you can see around for bare around 25,000 per square meter, then there's 30,000, and there's 40,000, 50,000 for the high end. Now let's go into the schematic design phase. So this phase consists of the preparation of schematic design studies derived from the project definition phase. So the keyword here, guys, is that it is derived from the prior phase, so leading to the conceptual plans. So here, the architect evaluates the owner's program, schedule, budget, project site, and proposes methods of project deliveries. The architect also prepares the initial line drawings, representing design studies leading to a recommended solution, including a general description of the project for approval by the owner. Then the architect submits to the owner a statement of probable construction cost based on current parameters. So I think the first one, it's just an initial. I think it becomes more defined here uh, at the schematic design phase. Then if you look at the design development phase, it precedes. It's after the schematic design phase. So it is based on approved schematics and conceptual designs. Here, the architect prepares the design development documents such as plans, elevations, sections, and other drawings. So this is basically what you do in your building technology when you're asked to complete the working drawings. Then you outline the specifications to fix and illustrate the size and character of the entire project as to the type of materials, type of structural, electrical, mechanical, sanitary, electronic, and communication systems. Then you're going to provide diagrammatic layout of construction systems and provide also an updated SPCC, the statement of probable construction cost to the owner, because at this stage, you already have a more detailed idea on what's the probable cost of the project already, since you have already the complete working drawings. Okay, now let's move to the contract documents phase. So based on the approved design development documents, the architect, so it's based here still, the architect prepares the complete contract documents consisting of detailed designs and construction drawings, setting in forth the detail the work for the architectural, structural, electrical, plumbing, sanitary, mechanical, electronic, and communication works prepared by the architect and their respective professionals involved. For prepare technical specifications describing both, of course, you're going to describe the type and quality of materials, the finish, the manner of construction. So that's something to decide also how you're going to construct the project, the general conditions under which the project is to be constructed. Then you're going to submit to the owner 7 sets of all the construction drawings and technical specifications for the purpose of obtaining a building permit. Then you're going to further update SPCC if there are changes in the scope. Or for example, the owner wants to build initially a 4-story commercial building, but in the end, the scope was reduced to 3 stories only. So that's an example. Then assist the owner in filing the required documents to secure approval of government authorities having jurisdiction over the design of the project. Well, of course, guys, you really need these drawings, especially if you're going to apply for a water connection and electrical connection. So you're going to require the approved building permits. Then the bidding or negotiation phase. So in this phase, okay, let's look into A and B. So the architect prepares the bid documents such as forms for contract letting, documents for construction, forms for invitation, instruction for bidders, and forms for bidders' proposals, general, specific conditions of the contract, etc. Then the architect also assists the owner from the early stage of establishing a list of prospective contractors to awarding of the construction contract. So of course, guys, if you are the architect, you have an idea of reputable contractors, so you're going to guide the client on in the selection process. So we have here in 2.5.2 for competitive bids, procurements, the architect 1 furnishes complete set of the bid documents for the purposes of bidding in as many sets as may be required to conduct a successful bidding. The said documents are loaned to bidders at an amount sufficient to cover direct and indirect costs attendant to the preparation, packaging, reproduction, and delivery of the said documents. So basically, um, the the bidders, the contractors will pay. The bid documents are the intellectual property of the architect and must be returned by all entities acquiring the bid documents. So it doesn't mean, guys, that they have a copy of the document that they already own the drawings. So it's still the intellectual property of the architect. So the architect retains the sole ownership and copyright of the said documents. As such, bidders must not reproduce nor use the documents for unauthorized purposes. The owner must also not use the documents for any other purpose other than the project for which the owner and architect signed an agreement. Then it helps in organizing and conducting pre-bid conferences. Then it responds to questions from bidders. Then, no, the architect responds to questions from bidders. Of course, it's your job Then you organize also. Then the architect assists the owner in obtaining proposals from contractors. You analyze bid results and prepare abstract of bids, notice of award, notice to proceed, and other construction contracts. Okay. So for negotiated bids, the architect performs similar functions in 2.5.2 but negotiates or only negotiated one contractor instead of many bidders. So it usually happens, guys, if you already have a contractor on mind for the project, especially if it's just a small project, a residential building perhaps. So you could refer a contractor to the owner. Then for the construction phase, this phase, the architect performs the following. So the architect makes decisions on all claims of the owner and contractors on all matters relating to the execution in progress of work or the interpretation of the contract documents. So of course, you're the one who designed the house or the building. You have an idea. You are the one who has an idea on how to construct, on how the details work, on especially the sizes and the materials to be used. The architect also prepares change orders, others and turns over to the owner written guarantees required to the contractor and subcontractor. Then the architect makes periodic visits to the project site to familiarize himself with the general progress and quality of the work and to ascertain that the work is proceeding in accordance with the contract documents. The architect shall not be required to make exhaustive or continuous 8-hour on-site supervision. So it doesn't mean, guys, that you are the architect of a project that you should stay there in the project. Of course, you're also monitoring your other projects as well. So that's already a separate service already. Then the architect determines the amount owing and due to the contractor. Of course, as the technical representative of the client, you are the one who is more knowledgeable on the progress of work, especially the percentage of completion for the project. So the architect issues corresponding certificates for payment, such amounts based on his observations, the contractor's applications for permit. These certificates, which will constitute a certification to the client that the work has progressed to the state indicated, and that to his best knowledge, the quality of work performed by the contractor is in accordance with the contract documents. The architect shall conduct the necessary inspection to determine the date of the substantial and final completion and issue the final certificate of payment to the contractor. Then, lastly, the architect should, if there is more extensive inspection or full-time 8 hours construction supervision that is required by the client, there should be a separate contract for it. So a separate full-time supervisor shall be hired and agreed upon by the owner and the architect, subject to the conditions provided in the SPP document on full-time supervision. When the architect is requested by the owner to do the full-time supervision, his services and fees shall be covered separately in conformance with the applicable and appropriate SPP document. So like what I've said before, it should be a separate contract for this one. If the client requires you to do more than 8 hours of supervision, or it could be that there's another full-time supervisor for the project that is being done. So with this, guys, I'm going to end here at the scope of services. We'll continue our discussion on SPP Document 202 next week. So that's in accordance with the syllabus. So we're going to have an oral recitation when we meet in the class uh, in our online link later on. Okay, so stay safe, guys, and amping mo tanan.